Jason Chaffetz is in studio. Jason Chaffetz is in studio, Fox News contributor, former Utah congressman. Jason, and by the way, you got a great podcast, the Jason Chaffetz podcast, and author of the new book, They're Coming for You, How Deep State Spies, NGOs, and Woke Corporations Plan to Push You Out of the Economy. Jason, first off, the president spoke, you were on set, I think, for over an hour. One of my takeaways was, and there's a lot, when he said about Russia, we're not waiting 50 days. It's going to be 10 to 12 days. I know where this is going. He is fed up with Vladimir Putin.
He's fed up with Putin, and I think he said, yeah, it could happen anytime. We're just going to do it because there's no chance of any change. He's just been strung along. I think Putin has told the president time and time again that he would do this, do that, but it hasn't happened. And so I think the president's right. He's got the backing, I think, of the UK and a whole lot of others and it's the morally right thing to do.
Right. And I think in Ukraine, it's going to be interesting today because the Chinese are meeting with the U.S. trade team in Stockholm, Sweden, at which time Mike Pillsbury, as you know, is connected to China like nobody else. And the president's got certainly has respect, has said that China will come with a ceasefire proposal to this meeting. Which I find astounding because they could stop this thing in a second. 90% of all the drones come from them, the money, the buying of oil to sustain their economy. And if China says stop it, Russia has to say, okay.
Yeah, I think they are.
Do you think this is possible?
Look, I think the idea that the United States entered into this trade agreement with the UK gives us even that much more of a leverage point. Donald Trump is clearly the commander-in-chief and the leader of the free world, and I do think that's all tied together. I think it puts more pressure on China
to do a deal.
And part of that deal would be helpful to put an end to the war with Russia and Ukraine. I think it's three-dimensional chess, and I think the president is playing it brilliantly.
I think so, too, and I love the fact that the French hate the EU deal, and they want to blow it up, but they can't. One of 27 countries, part of the EU, why the UK left. They want to make their own deal, who, by the way, was the first to do a deal. I look for India to be next. That's my prediction before August 1st. Economy's too big. They're seeing too much happen.
Right.
And they can't say the president's not going to do it because we know he's going to follow through. Howard Lutnick weighed in on something else that matters to me, the TikTok ban. And he finally said what we all know. Cut 14.
I mean, the president really likes TikTok, and he said it over and over again because, it was a good way to communicate with young people. But let's face it, you can't have the Chinese have an app on 100 million American phones. That is just not okay. So it's got to move to American ownership. It's got to move to American technology, American algorithms. And if the president can get that done, and, I don't know if they'll be discussing it or not. I'll leave that, as I said, to Secretary Bessent and President Trump to decide how he wants to play it for this meeting on Monday. But I know the president is positive towards TikTok if it can move into American hands.
Right, if it moves to American hands. But if not, you got to ban it. And the president's got to realize that because it is a spy tool and a manipulative tool. I love that the Commerce Secretary said that out loud.
Yeah, that was a very realistic assessment of the situation. Interestingly, though, do you remember the app Vine? Vine was a precursor to TikTok and was awesome, but it was acquired by Twitter. Then they shut it down, but now it's in the hands of Elon Musk. And if you look at what Elon's been tweeting in the last couple of days, he's putting out polls. Hey, should I bring out Vine? Should I bring it back? Kind of almost foreshadowing that Vine under X would be launched, which is a serious competitor to TikTok.
Yeah, it was a blink of an eye. It was out there and then it was just gone, right?
Yeah, it was a great app. It was a great app. I think everybody started using it. But then it got killed by these
because
acquisitions.
Twitter didn't want the competition.
That's right.
Which should not be allowed. A couple other things. A lot of people, I hold what I said on Sunday. I thoroughly agree. The Biden auto pen, important. The Russia hoax, absolutely. Epstein files, yeah, let me know what happens. But these are not the three most important things in our country. I mean, what's happening with the EU right now, getting a resolve in Gaza right now, talking about the trade deals domestically at home, the big, beautiful bill that's happening, getting those confirmations completed from Michael Waltz on down before they leave for vacation this week. To me, that's the stuff that's going to affect the American people. But when it comes to the Russia hoax, what people should understand is there is new stuff out there, correct?
There is. There's stuff that's been there. It's just never had the light of day.
The annex to the Durham report?
Yes. Look, the foreshadowing by John Ratcliffe. He's the director of the CIA. He's the former DNI, director of national intelligence. He was on the intelligence committee when I served with him in the House. He was a former prosecutor, a U.S. attorney prosecuting terrorism cases. The guy knows his stuff. So when he goes on Mornings with Maria or Sunday Morning Futures and starts to say there's more information coming and goes almost to the edge and saying there's probably going to be some people prosecuted here, believe him.
Here it is. Cut 20.
This intelligence was so explosive that John Brennan briefed President Obama, Vice President Biden, Jim Clapper, James Comey, the entire national security team, telling them about this Hillary Clinton plan. Again, but think about this, Maria. That was in August of 2016, and yet it wasn't until more than 4 years later, in October of 2020, when I found, after an exhaustive search, John Brennan's handwritten notes and the underlying intelligence behind it that revealed exactly what happened.
And here's what he said, cut 19.
Before the intelligence community assessment that DNI Gabbard was talking about, and before Devin Nunes's report about that intelligence community assessment, before the Mueller investigation, before Crossfire Hurricane, there was this. In the summer of 2016, U.S. intelligence intercepted Russian intelligence talking about a Hillary Clinton plan to falsely accuse Donald Trump of Russia collusion, to vilify him and smear him with what would become known infamously as the Steele dossier.
So this, now wrap your head around this. The Russians pick up intelligence about Hillary about to wrongly accuse Russia of working with Trump, poisoning relations with a adversary further, and trying to just destroy Donald Trump's candidacy.
Well, it's pretty scary, first of all, how good the Russian intelligence is, particularly on Hillary Clinton. And you can see...
Because they already hacked her emails at this point.
Yeah, look, we can get into those vulnerabilities. I think where this is going, and it's just a guess, are these FISA warrants. Because it was the precursor of the Steele dossier that was used to justify warrants to spy on Donald Trump and those around him. So and it says verified on the top of these FISA warrants. You have to verify this. That's why it goes to the FBI, the Department of Justice, Clapper, Brennan. And that's the allegation. And if they did certify to the courts that this stuff had been verified when they knowingly or should have knowingly knew that was not true, that's where I think there's the vulnerability for these people.
Here's more from Ratcliffe. Cut 21.
For a 4-year period of time, the truth about the origins of the Russia collusion hoax was hidden from the American people. And unfortunately, Maria, as you recall, those same people were already at that point in time onto their next hoax, the Hunter Biden laptop. This was a month before the 2020 election. And unfortunately, what we saw with Joe Biden's election was another 4 years to be able to continue to bury the truth.
Yeah. Then nobody expected in 2016 for Donald Trump to actually win. That's where they were just whoops. And that's where...
But how did the game plan change? Then destroy him as president.
Yeah, destroy him.
Make him illegitimate.
That's right. And they did. And they were very effective at it because the next thing you know, you had the Mueller. And then that paralyzed the Trump administration for years to have to try to deal with that.
You know it's Trump knew it. The minute Sessions steps aside.
Yeah.
Think about this. Because as a member of the Intelligence Committee, you met with the Russian ambassador. Are you nuts? Yeah, he was the first senator to endorse Trump. But you should just stood up for it. Of course I'm going to meet with him. Screw you. Now instead he goes, okay, I'll give it up. Robert Mueller, special counsel. Let's see what happens next 2.5 years. It was brought up to me, too, is that they did pay a price for that at the midterms.
Oh, yeah.
So it looked like the president. Were you in Congress at the time?
I had left right in the middle of 2017.
Well, wasn't that part of it?
But the problem was, you're right with Sessions, because he was the attorney general for the first 6 months of the Trump administration. And when I would go to meet with him to try to get the documents legitimately regarding Hillary Clinton, her IT specialist, I said, I'm not touching Clintons. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Why not? Because it's the Clintons. Like, literally, they had that stranglehold over him, and he would not cough it up. That's why I think he was one of the worst attorney generals in the history. And Donald Trump has said as much as well.
So here's what Jonathan Turley said from the legal perspective, cut 23.
It was earlier in 2016 that John Brennan briefed President Obama to say that Hillary Clinton was planning to hit Trump with a Russian collusion conspiracy theory. So he knew that. So did Obama. And then at the end of the term, right before Trump comes in, they rushed this new assessment, which essentially flipped the earlier assessment and seeded the basis for the Russian investigation. And it worked. But now you've great vulnerability for people like Brennan. What we learned last week does not seem to conform with what he said to Congress. And that's going to raise serious issues if he's called back before Congress, and they're going to ask him the same questions.
So the House Intelligence Committee compiled these egregious errors, one of which says, one of the errors says that included burying intelligence that the Kremlin was preparing for a possible victory by Hillary Clinton, according to the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. When confronted about the intelligence in the dossier failing to meet basic tradecraft standards by another intelligence agency, Brennan is quoted as saying in the report, "Yes, but doesn't it ring true?" Can you imagine the fate of a president? Doesn't it ring true? Who trained this guy?
Well, look, everybody thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win. They thought they were doing her favors. And it just so shows how they put the interest of politics far above the interest of the nation. You got to call balls and strikes in those positions. That is not what they did. But for John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA, to say, hey, we found handwritten notes by these people, that finally was unearthed. Look out. And that should come out later this week.
So Congressman Jason Crow, Democrat, on with Shannon Bream, said this, cut 24.
The allegations and the conspiracy theories by Tulsi Gabbard would be sad if they weren't so dangerous. She has turned herself into basically a weapon of mass distraction, is what I've been calling it, because it's very clear what's happening here. She's trying to curry favor and get back into favor with Donald Trump and has concocted these theories to do so.
The problem is that Tulsi Gabbard comes with receipts. She comes with documents. She comes with that credibility. And if he doesn't have any intellectual curiosity as to what really went on, then step aside. Let other people do this investigation.
But you know, I put that in there because Democrats are immediately going to say just that. Come on, guys. 2016, everything's out. You did an investigation. Nothing to see here. Obama's out of office.
My emails. That's what Hillary Clinton will keep saying. It'll keep coming back time again. Oh, that's nothing new. You know, all the same tropes that they usually try to pull out. They're already starting that drumbeat. But now, look, Donald Trump, or Pam Bondi, a lot is on her shoulders on a lot of these things, particularly this. Are they going to actually prosecute somebody? And these are as serious a charges as it gets.
I just want to hear Lindsey Graham, because on Meet the Press, he was trying to tell Kristen Welker that this is new. She could not get this concept. Right. And at the end, he let it go. He should never have let it go. But listen, cut 31.
What I am saying is that you left a lot out here. It's called the Horowitz Report. It's the Mueller investigation was crooked and rotten to the core. The Washington Post and the New York Times got a Pulitzer Prize for reporting on Trump's campaign's relationship with Russia. It was all BS. At the time, I didn't know any of that. At the time, I didn't know that they were manufacturing evidence to get FISA warrants. There was a confirmation bias. Durham didn't say there was no political bias. He said quite the opposite. He said every time a FISA warrant was sought in the Mueller world, they got it, and the errors made to get warrants in this space were a lot greater than they were in anything not involving Trump. But what I'm saying is that this is new evidence.
So previously they played clips of him back in 2016 saying, okay, the investigation's done and Russia manipulated our elections. He's trying to tell her this is new. Well, what were you thinking there? Well, this is new. She wasn't getting it.
Well, she didn't want to get it. That's the problem. I mean, look, the media was so complicit. Like, I watched that press conference where Tulsi Gabbard at the White House goes out in front of like a lot of the questions had nothing to do. You had the director of national intelligence making accusations about Barack Obama himself. about his personal involvement in this. And they didn't have the intellectual curiosity to ask a question. Are you kidding me? But they're going to have to lay this out. So much of it is new. It is coming out. And what Director Ratcliffe is talking about, whoa, that is so serious.
I've heard in pretty good sources that within 2 months, it's going to be so substantial that even CNN will have to run it unless they just want to go off the air.
Well,
maybe they do.
I don't know. Is anybody going to be watching to know if they go off the air?
Right, that's true. What about the networks like ABC and whatever? That maybe I would like to see them run. They're going to just see that. I think it's going to be Hillary Clinton behind it, right? And she could be. You could see what's going on, and I will say this:
it's not just the $10 million. It's going to be a question because that goes to the $10 million. You've got Mark Elias in that group. Then you've got Fusion GPS. You've got the Nellie Orr and Bruce Orr. That's going to be further exposed.
Jason Chaffetz, thanks so much.
I have met with more than 20 different countries over the last 6 to 8 weeks. The administration is all hands on deck, meeting with numerous countries. In fact, over 70 countries have approached the United States to find a better trade agreement. The announcements that we've had with the United Kingdom, with Japan, with Indonesia, Vietnam, and then today with the European Union is quite amazing.
That is Jason Smith, very powerful guy, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. He's playing a big role with these trade deals too, and they kind of choreograph and work out the frameworks, and then they do the deals. And of course, the big deal was the EU over the weekend. Together with the U.S., we make up 44% of the world's economy. And the big meeting today in Stockholm with China, we thought would be a perfect time to bring in the founder and CEO of the India Index and also a partner at the Vogel Group, Samir Kapadia, with us. Samir, welcome.
Brian, thanks so much for having me. And you're right. This is a big day for the president and the White House. They clearly know what they're doing. And if anything, we've seen here that these tariffs are corrective. They're not protective. And you just saw Europe fold, clearly today over this new announcement.
So, for people who don't know, it looks as though we're going to get our cars some access to the European market, possibly for the first time. There seems to be another big deposit into America's investment account. The one that Japan gave was over $600 billion, and this should be about $700 billion. They'll have an investment. Obviously, they could benefit from that, but it's going to help American industry. They have a 15% tariff across the board. What else is significant about this?
Well, I think you have to look, Brian, into the way that the president has thought strategically around these deals. You can't just look at the pattern, but look at the paperwork. It's interesting because the European Union now is committing to major purchases to the tune of $750 billion worth of U.S. natural gas products. And, when you think about what that can do for U.S. industry, but more importantly, what it does to Europe's relationship with Russia, it begins to realign the geopolitical map in ways that many are really not talking about. This wasn't just an economic victory for the president and for the country. It was a geopolitical and national security one as well. And so around the world, you're seeing that, whether it's even with Philippines or Indonesia, some might say, and this is the typical kind of Washington intellectual snobbery, which says, oh, well, those deals are so small, they're not going to make an impact. Well, guess what? The United States, from a national security perspective, has a lot of equities in the Indo-Pacific, and we want friends in the Indo-Pacific to contain adversaries like China. So once again, the president is thinking very strategically around how not just to maximize market access, but win friends as a way to contain our adversaries. It's genius.
So what I think people misconstrue out of tradition is that when you negotiate with someone, it doesn't mean you're in a fight. Hey, I'm not happy with this rate here. I'm not happy we can't get F-150s into Japan. Well, why are you talking to an ally like that? Well, that's what we got to change. Economics are economics. Dollars and cents are different. We could be friends, but my goal is to make the country stronger. I don't need another friend. And I think that's people have a hard time understanding Trump's approach. It's not personal, but he'll do whatever he can to cut the best deal possible. But he's not doing it for the Trump organization. He's doing it for the country.
Totally, Brian. And look, I've been doing trade deals now for over a decade. I've been at the White House for the past few months working with folks, on these staffs on how they're framing these agreements. And from what I can tell, this is just the beginning in a tour to be unapologetic about American industrial capabilities. For decades, American presidents would go around the world and almost be apologetic about the way that we look at our economic agenda. And what do? We let them export all their products into the United States and consume American economy. But then when we want to actually access their markets and maybe sell them agricultural products or defense platforms or oil and gas products, there's always this reluctance. There's always this wall. And so the president said, look, we're not going to do that anymore. If you're going to benefit from the United States economy and make billions of bucks off of American consumers' wallets, then, hey, you're going to start buying some of our stuff. So it's totally rational. And finally, we have a president who's being very, strategic and thoughtful about it. It's so clear that this is working because all of these countries are blinking, and I just saw this morning.
And no retaliation too, right, Samir?
No, none.
There has not been retaliation since April when it went out. I think Canada did something and they were alone.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I think that the tonality of these negotiations are really, really well crafted. I mean, you have folks like Secretary Bessent and Secretary Lutnick and Ambassador Greer, and I've met with all their teams over the past few weeks and months, and they've just been incredibly thoughtful and forthcoming in this agenda. And I think toughness works, right? Like Brian, we saw this morning Secretary Lutnick saying, "Hey, August 1st. Tell you what, we're not going to pause on these tariffs. They're actually going to happen." And once again, this domino effect of announcement after announcement after announcement of saying, hey, by the way, you guys are right. We have been taking advantage of your market, and we're going to do something to sort of reconcile that inequity. And I think people are pretty happy about it. I mean, the funny thing I saw this morning as well is the French prime minister kind of coming out and saying, well, hey, I think, the European Union should probably rethink this. And, this was we were submissive to the United States. Well, you know what? You're going to find these kind of singular kind of comments from heads of state when really they're just going to try to use that as leverage to get something else done down the road. But all in all, from everything we've seen, there seems to be some kind of equilibrium here that, frankly, our country hasn't seen in 50, 60, 70 years. It's really incredible.
Yeah, do you think that India feels pressure to come across with some type of deal now? I mean, another huge country. And, of course, that conversation comes with why are you buying Russian oil?
Yeah, Brian, it's a big point, right? Because, look, India is a strategic ally of the United States. It's the largest democratic country in the world. Keep in mind, half of the population of India is under the age of 25. So what that means for the United States kind of corporate actor is, look, I don't just want to leverage India only as a supply chain partner. I kind of want to sell my products and services to the Indian economy for the next 20, 40, 50 years. So there's a lot of interest in saying, okay, where are we going to land this plane? From my conversations with folks within the National Security Council and others within the White House ecosystem, this is probably going to roll out in a kind of three different stages. There could be what you call a phase one, where they reconcile this reciprocal tariff issue. And then phase two, where they get into more what we call foreign direct investment, alignment on defense platforms. Mm-hmm. They might even get into the weeds on some of the ag stuff. And then phase three will be potentially a meeting with President Trump and Prime Minister Modi in India, which could happen in November, where they sign what we call a BTA, a bilateral trade agreement. So I think with India, there's going to be a cadence of negotiations. But I think just on the heels of, look, Japan, Indonesia, Philippines, Europe, Brian, I think it's going to be very hard for India not to come to the table and sign something quickly. I mean, look, the clock is ticking, right?
I agree. If you look right now at Fox polls out, and by the way, Prime Minister Starmer and the president are still meeting they're still having an open press conference. This is probably about a half hour longer than Starmer's ever given one. But the president's not leaving. But one of the things he just said is the president says, I'm shortening the 50 days to 10 to 12 days for Vladimir Putin. because he's had it.
Look at that.
He goes, I know where we're going to be in 50 days, so I'm not going to wait that long. But if you look at the Fox poll right now, what is the president's approval on the economy? 44%. On inflation, 36%. On tariffs, 36%. And what I say to people who are looking at it, just saying that, let's say that's accurate, is the president with that big, beautiful bill, that's his economic plan. With the tariff, this is his approach, restructuring trade. So he's made the tax cuts permanent. He told you where we're going to be economically. And now we have trade deal after trade deal. So we're reconfiguring trade. And we're going to our number one adversary in every way, China, today. We're working towards a deal by August 12th. This is the certainty in the markets. And I would tell the American voter, if I'm Trump, tell the American voter, this is my game plan. Watch. And if you don't like it, the results, don't vote for me. But I just watch. Don't be skewed. Don't let anyone tell you what to think. Tell me what you're feeling. And I'm pretty sure he feels as though if they're going to judge him by his programs, he's going to be okay in the midterms.
Brian, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think if you look at the reasons why voters, reelected the president, it's a really kind of a return to our identity as a country. For decades, American presidents approached trade with a kind of, almost like a self-loathing. I mean, they treated our prosperity as a country as something we needed to apologize for, where we just allowed for all these products to come into the United States, and we kind of reshored all of our industrial capabilities in countries around the world, this kind of new global system. I mean, frankly, the United States basically gutted Detroit and our auto industry to the needs of others for decades, and I think we've reversed that script where we're saying, look, this isn't just about commerce. It's about diplomacy. It's about respect. And that only happens with leverage. Right. No other president's done anything like this, Brian, because frankly, they didn't have the guts to say, hey, look, I'm going to reset this relationship. And here's what I'm going to do if you don't acquiesce to these terms, frankly, pretty rational. And now you're seeing all of these countries fold like lawn chairs because they realize they've had it so good for so long, and it's common sense. So this is only going to continue, frankly. And for the average American, I mean, what are you going to see? Well, you're going to see your local factory hire more people. You're going to see more investment, and the foreign direct investment piece I think is genius, Brian, because it's not just about, hey, market access, I want to sell more to you. It's, by the way, you're going to invest in U.S. capabilities, which, frankly, I've never seen any president make that, one of the legs of the stool when negotiating, because it's not just about the ag exports. It's not just about the defense platforms and the oil and gas stuff. It's okay. You also have to lower your trade barriers so that we can export more to you. Oh, and then the third leg is you are going to invest in rebuilding, the United States industrial capability. So that's going to create a lot of jobs and a lot of prosperity for Americans in the long term. And that's what we want as a country. Yeah. This whole short-termism thing where, hey, I want to see this get settled in the next month or the next year or the next 5 years. The president's not only delivering on that, he's delivering on what could be the next 25 to 50 years of an American renaissance in industry. And frankly, we got to give him credit for that. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Plus the crypto situation, and, he's setting up parameters in order to grow, as well as what he's doing with AI. Lastly, I know the president's got his trade team meeting in Stockholm with China. But Michael Pillsbury on Fox and Friends First this morning, who is very tapped into China and to this administration, says that China's coming to the table with something that somewhat was surprising to me. Cut 18.
I think the main thing is if he agrees to help us on China trade issues and not benefit from our refusal to sell high tech to China. We don't want the UK or any other high technology country in the world to step in and benefit from our sanctions. So a parallel approach, a joint approach to China, is the best thing we can hope for out of this meeting with the Prime Minister this afternoon.
Yeah, that's not the part I wanted. I want the part, Michael Pillsbury went on to say that China is going to come with a ceasefire proposal for Russia to stop the fighting. Yep. So that's the part of the interview which just stunned me. They could do it in a second. They provide 90% of the components for these drones, the money, the buying the cheap oil. we're about to hit him with third-party sanctions. It would blow up all this trade progress we're making. And that's one thing that Vladimir Putin will listen to, don't you think?
Oh, totally, Brian. And it comes back to that point where this isn't just around the economics. It isn't just around the reciprocity and the bargaining. It's this larger vision around geopolitical wins to say, look, we have adversaries and we need to be very open-eyed about them to get them to do the things that we want, which is to stop some of these challenges that we're seeing in various parts of the world, or whether it's to act a certain way when it comes to abiding by U.S. regulatory regimes. We're saying, look, we're going to kind of corner these countries and get them to help us out in ways that they haven't done before. Look, I think it's, for those that say that the U.S.-China relationship is acrimonious, I think that's false. I mean, this is all angling towards a symbiosis. I think Secretary Bessent has done a terrific job in kind of managing and tempering that relationship. We're continuing to see announcement after announcement around the United States and China speaking, working collectively, having some sense of common sense around finding a way to work together. So I think that's only going to buoy markets. It's only going to buoy sentiment that this is going to have a softer landing. And if it, at the same rate, if it gets challenges that we're having with countries like Russia to ameliorate, that's even better. So once again, I think it's all trending in the right direction.
Yep. Samir, Kapadia, thanks so much for coming on, I should say, the CEO of the Indy Index and also a partner over at the Vogel Group. An exciting time. We're going to find out. If this stuff works out, we're going to feel it in our pocketbooks. We're going to see it in the grocery store. Samir, thank you.
Brian, appreciate it. Good seeing you. Talk soon.
Before the intelligence community assessment that DNI Gabbard was talking about, and before Devin Nunes's report about that intelligence community assessment, before the Mueller investigation, before Crossfire Hurricane, there was this. In the summer of 2016, U.S. intelligence intercepted Russian intelligence talking about a Hillary Clinton plan to falsely accuse Donald Trump of Russia collusion, to vilify him and smear him with what would become known infamously as the Steele dossier.
So do you understand how significant this is? One thing, do you have to know John Radcliffe? He's not a sensationalist. You don't become DNI and then go to CIA and sit there and go, I'm going to be a flamethrower. I think he's very logical. Also, he's got his own reputation. There's no pressure on him to come up with some Russia hoax, to dismantle the Russia hoax. He's saying that Russia picked up on intelligence that Hillary Clinton was going to blame them to colluding with Donald Trump to win an election. And do you know that Russia was plotting and planning, was certain that Hillary was going to win? And that they planned on putting out that she had all these psychological problems and drugs, and it was on it was on tranquilizers. Did anyone ever bring that up? No. Some of this was an annex to the Durham report, as if they didn't know where to put it. So the Federalist writes this: senior intelligence officials strenuously fought the demands of former FBI Director James Comey and other Obama intelligence chiefs to include in this intelligence assessment the false and unverified Steele dossier in an official assessment based solely on what we do know now. When pressed, guess what? They said, we have no proof of this. Do you know what John Brennan says? But doesn't it sound right? Do you believe this? So Dan Bongino put out on a cryptic message on social media on X. He said he was shocked to his core. And what he has learned about, he didn't tell us what, but I have since learned it's about Russia, that it changed him forever. And we're going to find out these details in the next few months. A guy that spent his life as intelligence, served in the military, was in the the House Select Committee on Intelligence, and of course with the FBI, is the former GOP congressman who's the Senate candidate in Michigan, Mike Rogers. Mike, I'm very cognizant of people being worn out about something that happened in 2016, but people aren't understanding there is new stuff here.
Oh, absolutely. And if it's true, and why we need to drill this thing down until you get all the facts, is that the intelligence services plotted with misinformation to go after a political figure in the United States. Take out all the personalities of it. To go after a political figure in the United States, and had a high degree of success, including even influencing what we know now as the FISA court, where they misrepresented a filing to the FISA court. That in and of itself is a crime, by the way. And so you start going through all of this, and you think this is dangerous. And why people need to be fired up about it is not because of the politics of it. But listen, if they can do that to someone who was the former president of the United States, or was the president at that point, or going to be the president at that point, imagine what they can do to you. And so that's what bothers me most of all about this, is that all of them kind of succumb to this, the Comey kind of trance about pulling all this together, including other intelligencers. That whole letter of the 51 intelligence officers, that was all nonsense too. Matter of fact, the first email that they had sent out apparently had the language of, hey, listen, Biden needs a talking point in a debate.
Yeah.
They signed a document for a talking point using their positions of authority and access to give, to rise to question that it must be true. Look, there's 51 of them. That's what's so dangerous about this. If you want to talk about politicization of the government and weaponization, man, that is it. And that's why I think, yes, you're right. It's tiring. I mean, but we never have gotten to the bottom of it.
Right. And I think that Hillary Clinton, the fact that it's proven that she had to pay a fine because she paid for the dossier that actually was the anti-Trump information that led not only to stop him from winning the election, but then stopped him for 2.5 years. I could say this, and it was pointed out by, I can't take credit for this, by a listener that wrote me. And he said, do you realize that something did happen? Yeah, Trump kept his job, but he got crushed in the midterms. And he lost the House. And then we had this situation where nonstop investigations, impeachment investigations on him, because 2.5 years was spent trying to stiff-arm this Russia hoax. And can you imagine, he wasn't able to be judged on what he did. He was being judged on winning an illegitimate election. Remember, Donald Trump knows he didn't legitimately win the elections. He's an illegitimate president. That was the push. And that was used as a hammer against him in the midterms.
Oh, completely. Oh, Brian, and again, that's why we need to know the truth in this. Because again, if all of the instruments of power of government, when you use it to target an innocent citizen, and yes, in this case, it happens to be Donald Trump, and I know that people love him, people don't like him, but whatever. Take the personality out of it. That could happen to anyone. And if the government can do it there, they can do it at any time. And you're right; it ruined the first couple of years of his presidency. It cast this huge shadow. 2 impeachments into this thing, and it set the narrative that this is a terrible, terrible guy because he did all these really bad things with the Russians. Turned out none of it was true. And so that to me is what was so dangerous about this.
And the thing is, too, Mike Rogers, is that we're going to get more. This isn't like, look at this. This is like, you're not going to believe what's going to hit you. That maybe even CNN will have to cover it. But you have good news. You almost won that Senate seat, lost by a little. Yeah, we were very grateful. You showed a lot of grace in saying, okay, good fought race. But then this seat opened up, and you have gotten the endorsement of President Trump. And on Truth Social, you said, I'm grateful to have President Trump's complete and total endorsement. He knows that we have what it takes to win this seat and deliver real results for hardworking families. That means a lot, right?
Oh, it does. It means a ton. It really does. And that'll help us with the primary. One of the things that happened to us last time, Brian, we had a primary up till August 8th of the election year. And, that only gives you, you come out of that a little bruised, a little battered, and a little broke. And so we had to try to make up for all of that in just a very short period of time. Meantime, the Democrat, my opponent, was just raising money and running around and didn't have all these problems. And so this allows us to not have those problems. This clears the primary out. We lost any real opponent that we might have had last week. And we're marching down the road, building our team, building our ground game, and getting people fired up to come out and do something great for Michigan. 32 years, we really haven't had a voice. in this Michigan Senate. Two people think the same, talk the same, vote the same. This at least gives Michigan a voice at the table, and I get to walk into the Oval Office and say, here's what Michigan needs, Mr. President. Need your help on this. Well, that's going to be the big difference.
So how do you – things are going to be different now. We see what happened with what's going on in Gaza, and you see they're putting out these pictures of these starving kids, one of which at least is a total fake. The Free Press just exposed it. But you have to win a lot of the Muslim votes. So what's your message now in that community?
So, and I do go to the Muslim community quite a bit, going there again, I think, next week. I talk about things that are important to their family and their lives here. They're very entrepreneurial. Their businesses in regulation and taxes and all of the oppression of Democrat regimes mean something to them. The education, even the fact that we're talking about having biological males compete against their daughters or in their locker rooms in public schools brings them to their senses about what a conservative Republican Party can do for them and their families and their communities. They're big into public safety. We have that opportunity. Yeah, they have a kind of a saying in and around Dearborn, better to be stabbed in the heart than stabbed in the back. They believe that the Democrats would breeze into town, say, we're with you, we're with you, we're with you, and then do something different on Israel when things got hard. They know where I'm at on Israel. I don't do that. I look them in the eye and say, here's why I'm pro-Israel, and here's how I think we can help. After the Gaza situation calms down, how can we help? And I think America needs to help there. Those folks and kind of get things back in order to provide a lasting peace there. And that's how those are the conversations we have with the Muslim community, and they're responding very, very well. I mean, the business Muslim community very, very engaged, and they're engaged with us, and they're engaging with our campaign in a way we just haven't seen before.
So I want to get your take on what happens next, because these next few days, week is going to be crucial. They gave up on Hamas. Steve Witkoff said, I'm basically giving up on talks. They have no interest in coming to a resolution on the 20 living hostages they have and the rest of the bodies that they killed. It's horrendous. But they might have a plan B, and the plan B is for complete victory. Listen to what Senator Lindsey Graham said, cut 34.
I think Israel's come to conclude that they can't achieve a goal of ending the war with Hamas that would be satisfactory to the safety of Israel, and if they're going to do in Gaza what we did in Tokyo and Berlin, take the place by force, then start over again, presenting a better future for the Palestinians, hopefully having the Arabs take over the West Bank and Gaza.
So, I mean, people are freaking out of that. They go, you're going to go for total carpet bombing annihilation? No, but they don't feel as though they can negotiate, and they might have to make military moves to get those hostages. So, you're in the military. You have the FBI background, and you also have seen the biggest and best intelligence when you're in the House. So your thoughts about Senator Graham?
Well, listen, it was probably very light on details, and details are going to matter in what that looks like. If they're saying you have to continue to attack the infrastructure of Hamas, no matter what level people think it is or is not in shape to perform activities. I mean, clearly they're still able to attack and kill Israel's soldiers. They're doing that. And so I would argue going after the hostages has to be still the number one thing that they do. And that's going to mean some military engagement in Gaza. They have to give up. They could stop. Hamas could stop this tomorrow with a ceasefire if they gave up the hostages. But they don't, and they won't, and they're not going to.
That is never brought up.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, what is your job if you're the Israeli prime minister is to get your people safe and home, even the remains. You leave no one behind. These were terrorist acts of atrocity that dragged those people out of their homes after they, did atrocious things to their families in front of them, dragged them into the tunnels, and they're still there. And so I argue they have to continue to wear down Hamas. Listen, does it mean that they need to find a way to make sure those kids aren't starving? Yeah, I think they can do both. It's tricky, but they need to do that. And then continue to kind of find and dismantle Hamas until every single one of those hostages is brought home. And they don't even nobody talks about it. And you can't allow a terrorist group to do that and get away with it.
I hear you. Lastly, on Epstein, what did you know about that in the House? What kind of priority was it then when you were there? And why do you think it's a priority now? Because I want you to hear what Speaker Johnson said. He's getting pressure to have this massive investigation on an issue that really was something that was Jeffrey Epstein hung himself in 2019, for goodness sakes. Cut 38.
Let me be absolutely clear, as we have been from the very beginning. House Republicans insist upon the release of all credible evidence and information related to Epstein in any way. But we are also insisting upon the protection of innocent victims. And our concern is that the Massey and Khanna discharge petition is reckless in the way that it is drafted and presented.
So you got, Tom Massey, obviously a heretic Republican, doesn't want to vote on anything. So he's using this as an opportunity, like Adam Kinzinger, to go after Trump. Your thoughts on how we get out of this? Because I don't see any reason that we're spending all this time on it. But how do you handle it right now if you're Trump?
Yeah, and first of all, this all happened after I left.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Yeah. So my last full year was 2014. So if you notice, I was chairman of 2014. None of all of this stuff happened after I left. I think I would have. I did run that place with an iron fist to make sure it worked on behalf of the American people, not against them. So listen, this is what I would do. I would find the way that you can release this information, have a small working group put together to do this. I do believe you have to protect victims. You also have to protect somebody who got on an airplane and rode with them, was not a participant in any other activities other than, they may have had business, legitimate business reason. You can't put that person out there. That the court of public opinion would ruin their life for no reason. And so that's what you have to be careful of. But the things that they have that happen around the island and all of that, to me, that ought to be released. But I would be cautious how you do it. And I don't think a big ugly vote on the House floor was the right way to do that. You do have to protect not only the victims, but the innocent people who get sucked up. So their name is on a report somewhere. It doesn't mean they did one thing wrong in the raw files. You don't want to hurt that person's career or reputation or family either. And so that's the way you have to do it. You can't do it in a big sloppy way. And listen, people who just want to be after Trump are just going to beat this drum all day long. And because they don't have anything else, they really just can't help them. So, they don't.
Trump is hitting them so quick with so much. Instead of going after policies, they're just trying to get a scandal. Good luck with that. If this was the victims out there speaking, saying they want their day, I get it. Then I get it. But this is somebody started with Elon Musk, perhaps, with his post, and now all of a sudden things gone crazy. Mike Rogers, do you want to get back into that craziness? So he wants to be the next senator from Michigan. Mike Rogers, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Brian. But listen, the reason you do this is for the future of the country. If we don't get the next decade right, we are going to be in real trouble to be able to hand America to our kids and our grandkids to have the same opportunity we did. To me, that's worth going through all of this to be a part of that solution, not a problem.
You look at this as service, and I appreciate that. Mike Rogers, thank you.
Thanks.